Hello and welcome to this quick pitch video on Robustel's new and unique Smart Roaming v3 technology. Smart Roaming v3 is built on seven to 8 years now of developments. It's the third in the series, and it's evolved as customers have fed directly back about what they like about the software, what's useful, and the extensions and the new features and the new problems that need solving. So today we're going to show you that entire history. It's probably going to be a slightly longer presentation than usual, but there's a lot of detail, there's a lot of hugely valuable features, so let's dive straight in. So why did Smart Roaming start 8 years ago in the first place? It started because when you put a roaming or multi-network SIM into a router, specifically a router using automatic network selection, you don't get the results that you expected or that very often that you hoped for. So this is a really important statement of fact, and a lot of people have never understood this because it's quite complex. It's buried away in TS 3GPP 23.122, so you can Google or chat GPT, that's standard. That explains the network selection rules. You can also look up this article on IoT Insider that explains the problem we're solving here. But fundamentally, if you're using a multi-network SIM and a router, you need some additional smarts in the system itself. So if we go back to you can see on the list here, we've got Smart Roaming V1, V2 and V3. So let's go right back to the beginning. V1, it was just about resilience. You can buy a SIM that can go to any network, and as long as there's some signal strength, it won't change. And there might be no mobile data, it might not work. So the first problem to solve was, let's make a device that's always trying to get a connection. So down in the bottom left, you can see step one. At boot time, if Smart Roaming is enabled, we perform a scan, and that populates a table as you see there. This is a UK example with O2, 3, Vodafone and EE. You then continue with standard automatic network selection, and most of the time that will work fine. But when it doesn't, we need to do something. So that is the crux of it. Every 5 minutes, by default, the router will check the ability to ping an IP address. You define that. The config guide, there's actually going to be a video config guide that will help to do the fine detail and things like that. So that and all these other parameters can be tested at an interval. And fundamentally, if it's healthy, stay in the same loop, go back, try again at the same interval. If no, move to the next network on the list. So this is the fundamental resilience piece. It's pretty much what everyone expected but didn't know they weren't getting when they bought a roaming SIM. So that's number one. In Smart Roaming V2, we added the ability to manually select networks at will. So it's not just about resilience. You can select a network, run a speed test. If it's good, stay there. If it's not, change networks and run another speed test. So you can manually determine the best outcomes at that point in time. Remember, these networks are very dynamic. The load on them and the RF conditions, they can change quite a bit. So that can be an important tool in your armory to be able to change that. In Smart Roaming V3, we take it to the next level. So Remote Triage allows, over a really thin connection, for you to fix remote sites very easily, very simply. And Site Survey is another feature that, frankly, we've been asked for 20 years. How do I know the best network on that site? Now we can tell you at the touch of a button. So let's move on to that. So this is the long list of what we've just discussed. Smart Roaming V1 had the basic resilience features. V2 went on to selecting and speed testing, and V3 it's frankly a spectacular piece of software now. And if you're using multi-network SIMs, do not roll out an estate of devices around a country or around the world without some sort of tool like this. So, key things in Smart Roaming v3, Remote Triage and Site Survey. Site Survey gives that classic, answers that classic question, what's the best network? What network should I use at this site? And it's amazing how many years that's been asked and how the answer has never been straightforward. So this is what you actually get when you run a site survey. And again, the detailed configuration guide will give you exactly how to set all this up for today. It's just an introduction of the benefits. So you can literally get ping times, download, upload, RF parameters, and many other things associated with your connection that are really valuable diagnostics, and it is literally at the touch of a button, or it can be scheduled, or it can be automatic when you plug the device in. There's some really smart tools in there. And because our customers aren't necessarily experts in interpreting all that data, we put together a little overlay traffic light system that just says good, medium, or bad. And this all comes into the cloud platform with Site Survey fully automatically. It's there, it's time stamped, and yeah, it's an invaluable tool. So one of the smart things under the bonnet, won't go into too much detail, but when we run a speed test in Site Survey, we suspend any existing internet traffic. So you get a more accurate speed test. Generally, if you go onto a router, click a button, say run a speed test, if there's any other data going through, maybe an IP camera, it's going to skew the results. So it's a really nice flip the firewall, suspend traffic, flip it back again during the site survey period. And then, of course, the classic utopia, we want to be able to run a survey and then go to that best network. And we can define best by the fastest upload, fastest download, or lowest latency. So they're all things that you can do in your config. Another really important framing of this, if you take, for example, one of our really competent, low-cost, flexible 5G devices, the R5010, and you run Smart Roaming v3 on there, it becomes a brilliant test tool, because a signal strength meter tells you signal strength, but that gives no indication of things like actual download and upload at that point in time, because that can be just as dependent on the load on the cell and how it's sharing out resources amongst equipment. So you do need a roaming SIM, multi-network SIM, for it to work, but if you're invested in knowing good performance, then it's an amazing tool. So, remote triage, really powerful. Generally, we see in our customers, you have one or maybe two staff as part of a telemetry team. They've got 1,000 routers across a country or across Europe, as given in this example here, and sometimes there's problems. And so what we can actually do is we go to the operations console section of the cloud platform. You choose the particular device you want to connect to. You click start and you get this console type interface. And it's a really important thing that when you are on a router with a very flaky connection, very degraded either through radio conditions or from congestion. Congestion is very hard to detect, but it's very real. So it's a text-based interface. It's paper thin, and it gives you a chance of getting through when you cannot get a graphical representation of your router. You can't log onto a browser, you can't build a VPN tunnel. So this will work over GPRS. And there are many pre-filled commands that you can send, but ultimately the most important thing here is that if the network that you're on currently, you make some measurements, it's not working very well, one of the only things you can actually do without a site visit is to change network. and anecdotally, we've seen maybe 50 to 60% with one of our major customers, 50% to 60% of their problems were resolved instantaneously with change of network. And that's extremely empowering when you just need to get things working up and running again. In the entire project in smart roaming and how everything that I've described today is working, there's a vast amount of logic below the waterline. We wouldn't go into all of the fine detail because it would take a long time. But to give you an example here, if you choose a network that isn't working, there's a very elegant fail-safe. It reverts to automatic network selection and you don't end up with a completely stranded router. And absolutely everything about smart roaming is always working to get you a connection. So even if you break something yourself by forcing a network change, there is recovery logic everywhere, because the last thing we want to do is leave you with stranded routers. So that's just a brief narrative about smart roaming for SIM providers, and that's it. That's the quick pitch video for today, based on our recent Smart Roaming V3 webinar. If you wanted to get any more information at all, contact sales@robustel.com, or you can have a look at the other video resources available on Robustel's website. So that's all for today. Thanks very much. Bye for now.